Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sanko for the second Pistons beat writer for Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport, who is not blessing us with his presence right now. He unfortunately ran into some tire trouble, which is the worst, but he ran into tire trouble at Costco, which means he is somewhere where he can get some new tires, get them fixed, all of that. So shout out to Wes. Hopefully he's getting all of that stuff figured out. But if not, guys, you need to make sure you're listening to him and Blake Silverman over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. Also, make sure you are reading all of Omari's work on the Detroit Free Press. Make sure you're subscribed and all of that. And we actually had a new rating and review for this, the Pistons Pulse, over on Apple. This was from Agent Sheriff Cooper Truman, Best Pistons Podcast. You both do great work, Omari and Bryce. Thanks so much for your thoughtful and insightful analysis of my favorite professional sports team. We are finally on the up and up. Truly exciting times. And then, if you are not subscribed to the Motor City Hoops Substack, I highly recommend it. I feel like I put out some pretty good stuff over there. My guy Harry from the Order of the Blazing Horse does some really cool video analysis as well. He's over there contributing. I promise everybody, this person put this comment in and then specifically asked me to read it on the Pistons Pulse. They said, this is from Chris, I've been reading game reports and analysis since it was Joe Falls behind the typewriter. These posts are pure gold. They really add to my Pistons experience by pointing out subtleties that I missed altogether or saw but didn't quite catch the full value of. Nobody that is eager to spend time reading about the Pistons should be missing this. So thank you very much. Philip says really good and got info on the Substack. I appreciate it. That was a lot, Omari. Also, you have some cards.
I was going to say, Substack is great, guys. Definitely check it out. I always check them out after they go live, so definitely recommend it.
I will say this, I don't mean to put Omari on the spot, but I can see how much people read the Substack, and Omari is one of my top subscribers. You get 1 through 5 stars depending on how much you interact with or how much you read, and you're a 5-star. So I'm not gonna lie, Omari. There's times where I'm like, Red Baron says, "Holy cow, Joe Falls." Is Joe Falls? Hopefully, it was okay for me to use that name. I don't know who that is. Is that way back in the Pistons content creation? I don't know. Are you familiar, Omari?
I'm not sure. It's not ringing a bell right now. If you want to walk us through this a little bit, Red Baron Arcade.
Yeah, so let us know. Hopefully I didn't drop a name. Okay, he just said old school. Okay, so not inappropriate or messed up or anything like that. Just somebody from the way back. Omari, also you have some car news, right? Like I saw you tweeting out that the dealerships won't leave you alone.
Yeah, no, I don't have any car news right now, but I'm in the waters fishing. You know, I've never just being somebody who I've mostly just been broke since I started my journalism career. Like most people getting into it, like I've always just driven old cars, and I've never driven anything close to new. So it's the first time I'm actually car shopping for real. So sometimes you'll see something online and you'll just do the inquiry or whatever, and they'll blow your phone up for days, weeks, and just persistent. And it'll just be I'm just perusing, I'm just window shopping. I went to a dealership and they were like, well, if you like this car, you could put some money down now and put it aside. I'm like, no, I just said I'm just here to peruse and I'm window shopping. So the dealership process is annoying, is all I'm saying. But yeah, I'm looking at getting some wheels at some point soon. So we'll see.
I dislike car shopping very much. I'm the worst. The last vehicle we bought, literally the guy talked me into it that day. And then he did a really good job. He got the vehicle in our hands to our house that day from another town because we had just looked online. And it's okay, well, once they go out of their way to get it to you and you get to test drive it and stuff, are you really going to send it back? So yeah, those salesmen see me coming from a mile away and know that they have an easy sale on their hands. So yeah, and I don't negotiate well and that type of stuff.
Yeah, it makes me Like I won't say it brings me joy, but like when they just constantly reach out and you see several emails and several missed calls and whatnot, it's like math. Like I hope this means that when I'm actually at the table ready to negotiate, that they are ready to make a sale, because clearly they need me. Clearly stock is not moving if this car is still available 5 weeks later. So that's what I'm hoping it means. Like I hope this all leads to me sitting down and they just run the red carpet and basically give me this car. Like that's what I'm hoping for. I'm a negotiator. I sit on stuff, like I dwell on stuff, I cross check, like I already have some quotes going into this process. So like I'm ready to sit down at the table and like I want to come out on top, like that's where I'm at right now.
Love it. So Chili says score, caught this one on time. Love it.
Real quick, Joe Falls is sports writing in Detroit as Blaha is to announcing for the Pistons. He was writing when I was a kid. So little history lesson for my pops. Clearly I need to read up on this. Probably know that one off the bat.
So Chuck says, was a major writer, at least back in the early 80s when I got into sports. Piston talks. Are we going to talk some Chiefs, Bryce? No, we are not. I want you to back me up here, Omari. If the Chiefs would have won, I also would not have talked Chiefs on the podcast. Do you believe that to be true?
I will give him that.
Okay.
I will give Bryce that. Bryce has never flaunted his Chiefs fandom. And actually, I mostly just heard him complain about the Chiefs more often than not this past year. So
I am a very Chiefs fan. Royce, you can't have the Nuggets ring in the background of the video. So I obviously record anybody who's just listening on audio in Royce's room. He wanted to stay in today. He promised he'd be quiet, but he has a Denver Nuggets like stuffed ring, because Denver's the closest game for us. So
I think Omari and Stephon Castle sound similar. Divine here with the tip. We appreciate you. I've never heard him talk, so I have to listen to a Stephon Castle interview and see how he talks.
Oh, that's what he's saying. Okay, yeah, I will have to listen to one as well, because I haven't heard him speak either. So, Divine, thank you for the super chat. And yes, you have me intrigued with this one in terms of listening to their voices and figuring that out. Harry says, go get that Prius, Omari. And Jeremy says, wait till you buy one and they call for an extended warranty. Yeah, I got that call also.
I'm very anti warranty. Like, I think about all the phones you own. Like, how many have actually needed like warranty service? Like, I've had one in like 12 years. Like, I feel like all that stuff's a waste of time.
Yep. So again, Divine, thank you very much for the super chat. We appreciate you very much with that. Caleb, I caught y'all live. Nice to see you both. 16 inches of snow in Ottawa. So this is a perfect night to cozy up and listen to Pistons Pulse. God bless y'all. God bless you, Caleb, for 16 inches of snow. We got about 4 or 5 inches of snow here in Lakin. Got a day off from school yesterday. Late start today because it was so cold. So 16 inches might shut us down for a week. Did Detroit get some snow here through this? It seemed like everybody had a chance.
Yeah. So I got back from Chicago today. I probably got back to the hotel around like 2 or 2:30. This snowed yesterday in Chicago, and my car was covered in snow when I got back here. So I think we probably got 4 or 5 inches over the last day and a half or so. So everywhere got hit, apparently.
Got you. All right, let's get into it. Detroit Pistons, Omari, they are 3 games over 500 at 29-26. A couple nights ago, you watched this team absolutely destroy the Chicago Bulls. Just absolutely destroyed them. I was actually a little nervous for Wednesday's game because I'm like, okay, you destroy a team like that. You come back, you play them again the very next night. Essentially the exact same teams. Everybody that was active, I think, was active again for both games, all of that. And they came out, they played pretty well. You knew Chicago was going to play better, right? Like they weren't going to beat them by 40 again, but they played good enough till about halftime. And then they built a lead, kind of kept the lead, got, I think, under double digits once in the fourth, maybe. But every time Chicago got it close, Detroit immediately pushed the lead. Cade looked in full control the entire game. Vibes are good going into this, almost week off here without a game.
Important question. Bryce, how old were you in 2009?
22.
So you were just finishing up college, roughly?
Yeah, I graduated college in 2009. Correct.
Okay. So I was... Okay, like I didn't mean this. I was a lot younger, but that is when the Pistons. That's when the Pistons last went into Ausar break with a winning record.
That's crazy.
16, 17 years ago? Yeah, I will tell you. I had just finished up, or I was in 9th grade, I think. So not since ninth grade have the Pistons won a playoff game. And this is the best Pistons team officially since I've been in ninth grade. And here I am, 30 years old, 16 years later. Like, that's a long time. Like, this is truly the best season in like almost 20 years now. That's a crazy thing to be able to say.
Is that's true? 2009 was the last time they were above 500 going into the All-Star break?
Yeah, I went back and checked. So you only have a handful of teams that would even be in contention for that. And that's 2016 and 2018 or 19, I believe. But they were under.
So like even the year that Blake had the really, really good season, they got swept in the first round of the playoffs. I think that was like the year before I started doing this, or 2 years or something. That team wasn't even over 500 going into All-Star break. That is
no. And I checked earlier, and I'm going to double check now just to make sure, so that if it's wrong, nobody would say Omari said. Let me double check this real quick before we run it. But I double checked, and I'm pretty sure it was 16 years.
I mean, that's what's crazy. Omari,
yeah, they were 26 and 30. They were 26 and 30 at the deadline in 2018-19.
Yeah, so Chuck says Blake's run, they were under, then went on a run after the break.
Yeah.
No wonder the excitement is what it is. Omari, like, to me...
Yeah, they were 28, 29 the year prior to that. Go ahead, but yeah.
No, I was just going to say, like, as this has unfolded, all I compare it to is the last 4 years of ineptitude and how bad this team has been as they've rebuilt.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite understood the level of excitement for them being 3 games over 500 and them being in the top 6 of the playoffs and stuff like that. That puts it into more perspective, because it's not about just being better than 14 wins last year. It's about being better than a lot of people have seen in 20 years in terms of regular season success. Like, that just puts it into such different territory than I guess how I had been looking at this season.
Yeah, so even in 15-16, when they finished 44-38, and that's the only winning season they've had, again, since 2009, they were 500. They were 27-27. So, yeah, not only this is the first time they're above 500, they're 3 games above. And I looked at it today for the story I wrote for tomorrow. But even then, the team was on a down slope in 2009 when they were above 500. They were 6 games over 500. They lost 3 straight going into the break, and then they lost 5 more. So they lost 8 straight games, and I don't think they ever recovered and got back above 500 that season. Whereas this team is 18-9 since December 21st. And they've also won 4 straight games. And like, all of those games were by double digits. Like, they led by 29 at halftime and won. They led by 20. They led by 44 or whatever it was, 45. Like, dominant. They have the same amount of wins as the Boston Celtics since December 21st. Like, they've been among the dominant teams essentially for a month and a half now. So, yeah, like, when you look at the excitement and, you know, just how excited people are, like, yeah, it's been 17 years. Like, we have listeners on the pod right now who have essentially not been alive. Like, your children have not been truly around for any semblance of Pistons success. Like, it really is like that caliber of season so far.
So I was looking at net rating. I hadn't really done this. So listen to these net ratings, Omari. Last 15 games, Detroit is 10th in the NBA in net rating at a positive 4.8. Last 10 games, Detroit is 6th in the NBA at a positive 7.5. And the last 5 games, Detroit is 3rd in the NBA in net rating at a positive 16.9. What is going on here? This is amazing play from the Detroit Pistons here going into the All-Star break. They are solidly, I think your tweet had it today, they're closer to what, like 4th than they are to 10th or something, something like that, right? In terms of, you know, games behind and games ahead. Those 2 wins over Chicago, like, I mean, it just put even more gap between those 2 teams. Incredible. Just incredible how they're playing. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And the chemistry is real. And this is, I do want to get into like, what do we think is going to happen coming out of the All-Star break? Because I'll be honest, I'm a little bit terrified it disrupts the chemistry and the flow that we've seen. Because this is real, right? Like, don't you think that the chemistry, the way Isaiah reacted to Malik breaking the 3-point record, like, you could tell it wasn't a slight to like Sadiq somehow. Like, it was just true joy of getting to see Malik break that record, which is crazy that he already broke the record this year. And like the Cade dunk the other night, I saw people showing the Tim Hardaway Jr. reaction to the poster dunk. It's It's incredible. And
He just
winning
had like a Dragon Ball Z, just double fist, just scream for anybody that missed it. Just pure, like, I don't want to say rage, but just adrenaline. Like, like it was a very intense reaction. Like nothing made him happier that night than seeing Cade pull that dunk off.
I mean, as Philip says, I never thought I would watch the standings for playoff seeding this season. I'm with him. I didn't think so either. This team has already won. Like, we blew past hey, they've already won more games than they did last year. Hey, they've already won more games than the 5 seasons you and I have been covering the Pistons, right? Like, we came in that same season. They're about to blow past what I thought their ceiling was. Oh, Omari, I thought 30 was probably the ceiling, and they're almost there already. It's really fun to watch the success they're having, especially after a lot of these guys did go through the treacherous last few seasons of all the losses.
Yeah, like, just to put it into perspective even more, you look at a team that won 14 games last season. They're at 29 now with 27 games left. They've already doubled last season, and they're too short of last 2 seasons combined because they won 17 the season before. And obviously that was the year Cade was out and Jaden Ivey and, Duren were rookies. So they were just a really young, really untested team. So you may surpass your win total from the past years combined before you get out of February. So, I mean, I don't even know how many wins I predicted before the beginning of the season. We may have to go back and revisit a little bit earlier, but like, they're obviously going to surpass even the wildest expectations. They're on pace to, like Marco Rello says here, they could win 42, which would triple last season. And, I'm sure we'll talk about players more in segment 2, but for them to even continue to win without Jaden Ivey, and you see guys like Duren and Ausar stepping up. Tobias is playing like he's been extremely efficient since New Year's, essentially. Like, you're seeing the team all sort of come together at once. And they've done this without Schroeder even getting comfortable. Like, you would hope he would get more comfortable after the deadline. So they're getting better as the year goes on. Like, I think like after this past week, you just see more and more evidence that they've genuinely turned a corner and they've built something that they can sustain. It's tough to see how they get worse from this point on.
Yeah, I will get us into like individual players in segment 2, but let's stay on just like the team and this ride just a little bit. Omari, they're 15th in offensive rating and 11th in defensive rating. I don't know which one I'm more surprised. I do know which one I'm more surprised by. I'm definitely more surprised by the defensive rating. The fact that they're top 15 in both, that they have a positive net rating on the season that is 14th in the NBA is just, it's crazy to me. They were bottom 3 or 4 in both of those categories last season. Oh, they're 21st in turnover percentage right now. It's not even like they're last. That's one of their biggest issues. It's just, the improvement is crazy. And of course, I think it's organizationally. It started with the hiring of Trajan Langdon and what he's done bringing this roster together. And I want to talk about health at some point and the fact that his bet on bringing in players who are available is paying off right now. But then it was the hiring of JB Bickerstaff and then the elevation of players in terms of them elevating their games. Like, we always talk about, like, if this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, the team could be this. Oh, they all improved. That never happens, right? Like, we're seeing Ausar grow every single game. I actually think Jalen Duren is on one of his better stretches of overall basketball. Cade took his game to a whole nother level. Malik Beasley, a veteran, is playing the best basketball of his career. It just is, it's really impressive how much organizational improvement across the board has happened in less than 12 months. It's so impressive after what they all went through last year.
Yeah. I mean, I've just been talking to people this week, like, who have been like around it. Like, last season already feels somewhat distant, like a weird, like, surreal fever dream. Like, did they really, lose 38 straight? Like, I can't even remember the month of January last year. Like, I remember when they snapped the streak at the end of December. Then I remember around the trade deadline because they went out west and won a couple games and the whole roster got shaken up. But I can't remember, like, I can't tell you what happened in January last season. Like, it's just, like, it might as well have been cut from my mind. And for them to have essentially, like, put together this memorable, like, this aligned, this cohesive of a season in such a short span of time. And as you mentioned, you have a new front office, you have a new head coach. You bring in a lot of newness up front, but still you have essentially the same core of guys like that does speak to what was initially assembled, even despite what you went through the last 2 years, that these guys were able to persevere and, pull together. And it seems like they're all collectively playing their best basketball. And you see it reflected on the court with how good the team's been since late December.
All right, let's go to a break here. When we come back, let's get into some of the players. We can talk Cade, we can talk Ausar, we can talk Malik, we can talk Isaiah Stewart. Schroeder would probably be a good topic as well, as we've got a few games from him. But we'll get into those individual players right after this.
All right, we're back for segment 2, and we're going to go ahead and get into some players. Let's go ahead and lead off with Cade, just because obviously this is he's the man of the hour, for All-Star Weekend, 3-point contest, and then the actual game on Sunday. And, what's interesting is that I feel like throughout this 4-game winning streak, he's been really impressive, but he hasn't been the lone standout, right? I feel like other guys like Ausar and they've had just as many standout moments, but you still also have moments like last night, that 13-point quarter he had in the third where, he's just blowing by Josh Giddey at will with that in and out crossover. And he has the dunk where he switches hands. And, he had a stretch like that the night before that too, where just nobody can stay in front of him. He's completely dictating the flow of action. It's just those stretches to me that really shows what type of leap he's made. Every single night, even if it's not the most efficient night for him, you expect him to have a 12 to 18-minute stretch where the defense just cannot solve him no matter what. And we saw that last night. We saw it in Chicago the night before. It just really feels like he's put it together fundamentally this season, to a further extent than I think any of us could have really predicted.
Yeah, Al says, funny, never watch live. I like how you do the ad break. Yes, Mimic says, yeah, I was thinking the same thing first time I saw it. If you don't watch live, if you're only watching or listening, I guess, on audio, I say, let's go to a break. We just stare at each other for about 5 seconds, and then Omari starts talking again. On the video, there is no ad break. We don't fill in the void or anything like that. So it is a little bit awkward, I guess, for people watching live on YouTube. But that is how we do it, and we keep it moving along there. Cade, man. Omari, I can't tell you how many, Tom says, yes, finally catching live. Love it. I can't tell you how many times in my notes I've typed out, they can't guard him. Do you know how many times? I've written it so many times in the Substack, and it's awful analysis. I just don't know what else to put. I've put it against good teams, against not good teams. I mean, there's some guys that have given some trouble, right? I thought Andrew Nebhard did a really nice job on him.
He's definitely probably one of the top 5 or 6 guys against Cade, I would say.
Yeah, he does a nice job. I'm excited for the a Blazers matchup against Tumani Kamara. You get excited for those matchups. But there's a lot where it's just this team cannot guard him. And if you don't have one of those real dudes at the point of attack, you have no chance. And if you don't have somebody at the rim to force him into mid-range jumpers, he may still beat you with mid-range jumpers, but then you're really in trouble. And we saw it in those Bulls games. He was chilling Omari, and not in a bad way. I legit was Cade's just taking it easy right now. When they need it, he'll turn it on, and he's very capable of doing it, and we saw him do so. And I think that's when you've turned a corner, when you can kind of okay, I'll get everybody else involved. We saw that he didn't initiate offense to start the game. That's where this team is at. They are experimenting with, hey, Ausar, you go run primary initiator to start this game because we can do that, and we can afford to do that. And it worked out kind of nice and probably gives Cade some more energy for the second half. But that's what's so impressive to me is just how many times I've typed out, they can't guard him because he's so good.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. There's just those 12 to 18 minute stretches. So sometimes you get those stretches twice in the same night where it's he's Doctor Strange and you see him every single outcome at once. It's just being computed all at once and he's just picking whatever the best one is. He's okay, this play, I'm just going to, blow past Josh Giddey at midcourt, drive right. And then, Buzelis is going to beat me at the rim and I'm just going to switch to my left. And
just going to switch hands.
Draw the foul and I'm just going to do it. And he had 2 drives even right before that or right after that, where again, you could tell by the time he gets to midcourt, he already knows exactly what he wants to do, and he just does it. You're just seeing him having, the defense solved as soon as the ball touches his hands, essentially. And that's where he's been at this point, since the first 10, 15 games of the season, maybe. Like, I remember early on, he was piling up turnovers, and it's still an issue here and there, but by and large, he's got a lot of this stuff solved. Like, it's honestly just, with somebody be able to take that pressure off of him, like whether it's Beasley going 7 of 10 for 3 or Ausar doing this stuff or not. But more often than not, if the Pistons can get any semblance of shot creation from anybody else on the roster, it means Cade is going to shoot like 55%, and he's going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. So that's been pretty consistent now.
The one thing I really love about how I think his game has grown is, yes, Marco, the Bulls broadcast was loving Cade and Ausar. Yeah. There was a lot of really good compliments to both of those guys and the team in general. I actually made reference to some of those in the Substack. The way Cade is manipulating ball screens right now is crazy. He even tried to do it last night. Like, he'll throw the fake pass. Like, he'll come in and he'll spin the ball so it looks like he's throwing a bounce pass, and then it spins back to him. And what he's trying to do is manipulate the big man, or he'll put 2 hands on the ball, throw his hands up in the air like he's throwing the lob to Duren, trying to get the big man to rise up and then continue on around. Like, he has such control in ball screens right now. It's incredible. Like, it truly is. Here's my one thing, because we got to talk about some other guys we could rave about. We could do a whole Cade episode if we really wanted to. Jeremy brings up Cade, maybe the legs tired, the 3, all of that. It's at 35% right now. I am fascinated, Omari, fascinated to see how he shoots and plays coming out of the All-Star break. This is his first time going, and I think it can be a lot, right? Like, they have played 55 games. Everybody else gets a week off. Cade is on his way to San Francisco to play in the All-Star game, take part in the festivities, practice for this 3-point competition, which is different type of shooting than what Cade normally does. I'm just interested. I would never doubt Cade. I'm just interested, right? I feel like we've seen this with home run hitters in the home run derby, right? Like, they come out of a home run derby and then their swing is a little different. I don't know if there's any sort of like thing with that in the 3-point shootout. I'm just interested to see if he's a little actual worn out coming out of the All-Star break because it's his first time, and media and the game and the competition and all of that, or if he's able to keep the momentum going. Just something interesting that I want to watch is all.
What's interesting is that looking at his numbers overall this season, he's essentially shooting 46% overall, 36% from 3, and 86% at the line. So he's stood from 3 a little bit, but his free throw percentage has rebounded after.
Yeah.
Starting off kind of rough, and he's found that rhythm at the line. And, you mentioned tired legs. If he could come back and he starts knocking down those threes at the same rate he was, then, you might look at him finishing the season around 47, 37, 87, which again, like, you're flirting with like some really elite efficiency at that point. So, I'll be really curious to see that. And before we move on and get to the second half of segment 2, I just want to say, where does Cade rank among ball handlers right now? Because like, his handle to me is just,
it's improved too.
Like, it's a really nice spot right now. And some of the stuff he's doing with the ball is just like the manipulation, and like, he's got it on the string. So like, I think he's taken a step forward with that, especially in the last month or so as well.
Yeah, his ability to create driving lanes with his handle is improved since his rookie year. He's going to be all NBA. Oh, he's going to be all NBA. I have no doubts. Again, whenever I did that activity with Sam a few weeks ago, I did not go in thinking that Cade was going to end up being all NBA. He was definitely one of my top 15. Like, he wasn't one of the guys I was debating at the end on whether to put on or not. He's only been better. They've only been better. And other guys are going to continue to drop out, i.e. Anthony Davis, who's probably not going to have the games to be eligible. Fernando says, thanks, guys. Greetings from Spain. There are a lot of fans support Pistons over in Spain. Omari, we know where Spain is at, right? That is not directly south of Detroit. That is somewhere to the east in Europe, I believe. So it has to be like midnight over there. What time is it in Spain right now, Fernando? Potentially Friday morning, even like after midnight, I would say. I want to bring up Tobias real quick because I don't think this is a guy we'll spend a lot of time on, but that Chicago broadcast brought Tobias's leadership up a lot. Marco says here, Tobias has been great lately. Just his leadership is impressive. Some other good Tobias comments. I agree with that. 2:33 in the morning. So it would be Friday morning in Spain already. Shout out Fernando for being up at 2:30 in the morning watching the Pistons Pulse. We appreciate you. Yes, if Cade is all NBA, it's roughly $8 million. just for reference, you also have to remember the Pistons are probably going to convey their draft pick, so that's a amount of money that won't go in there. But Tobias Harris, Omari, thoughts on his play, his leadership, just kind of what the Detroit Pistons have gotten from him this year?
Yeah, I mean, he has been Tobias Harris. Like, literally, he has been, like, picture perfect, exactly what you expect Tobias Harris to be. He has been. And, you know, he started the season a little bit cold, but you look at just his efficiency boost, you know, since Jaden Ivey went down, essentially, and the way he stepped up. I feel like he's had really good chemistry with, like, Duren and with Ausar as well. You know, we've seen Tobias and Ausar connect on some, you know, buckets and fast breaks both ways. So Tobias has just been solid. He's been reliable. You know, I think his presence in the locker room and just the experience he's provided has been really huge for this team. And to have a veteran who, you know, intentionally wanted to be here, at, like, obviously he really found himself career-wise here. And, you know, he just understood how he could fit onto this team, the confidence that he's given them. Like, it's paid off again. He's been Tobias Harris. You know, I think you knew exactly what you wanted, you know, from him coming in, and that's exactly what he's given them. And it's especially showing up over the last 6 weeks since Ivy's going down, and he's kind of stepped into that role a bit more.
You know what I appreciate about Tobias Harris? It's just, you know exactly what you're going to get. And maybe it's not always as much as you want, and I'm not saying you, and maybe as much as what I want. He's going to run 5 or 6 mid-post isolations, which I've warmed up to, especially when he gets the right matchup. Almost 50% of his three-point attempts, Omari, are corner threes. He's not doing crazy stuff with threes. He's shooting it at 38%. I wish they'd be a little bit better. If you're watching Tobias, I swear, my guy, like, when you shoot it up just a little bit more, it's more consistent. I feel like it gets a little flat at times, but he's doing a nice job there. Defensively, listen, he's not going to stay in front of a lot of guys, but he has the active hands. He's going to get to the right spots, off the ball, those type of things.
Sneaky has had a good amount of blocks and steals, too.
Yeah, no, like, super active hands, that veteran, just very accurate and active with those. But you know what the biggest stat is to me? 53 games played. 53 games played of a potential 55. And I'll shout out my guy, Base Pistons, whether Twitter or Blue Sky. He brought this up to me the other day in terms of, like, where Detroit has been with health. You know how many of these guys haven't played at least 50 games this year? Cade, 50. Malik, all 55. Tobias, 53. JD, 52. Hardaway Jr., 51. Fontecchio, 50. Holland, all 55. Isaiah Stewart, 50. The only real guys that haven't played 50 games was Ausar, not starting the year healthy and has been since then. And then obviously Jaden Ivey. This is what I referenced earlier, where what Trajan prioritized in terms of veterans has absolutely paid off. There's no way this team is 3 games over 500 if those guys haven't been available the way they've been available. And it's really cool to see that vision from him and see him get the reward, and shout out the veterans. Let's talk about a youngster, Ausar Thompson, probably the hottest name on the Pistons right now. I've kind of disliked where the conversation has gone because I just want us to appreciate Ausar and how good he's been for 2 weeks. And now we're like, Ausar versus Amin, Ausar versus Amin, Ausar versus Amin. I was like, can we not do that right now? But I know people like to go there. He's been really good. We've seen him initiate offense. We've seen him be a pest on defense. Where are you at with Ausar Thompson's game?
Bryce, you've seen The Incredibles, right? I'll ask you a question right as you have a coughing fit, sorry.
Yeah, listen, someone gave me credit the other day. They're like, Bryce, I'm so impressed. You always hit the mute button before you start coughing. And then, of course, the very next one, I cough right into the mic and annoy the heck out of people. Yeah, still get a coughing fit every once in a while, even though I'm feeling much better. Yes, what's the little kid? Flash? Dash, right?
Dash. Yeah. So you know the entire sequence where he's like figuring out how fast he is, and after a certain point, he's like I can literally do whatever I want. Like there's nothing they could throw at me that could actually stop me. Like I feel like that's been Ausar's fast month. Like he's realizing he's he can just do wild stuff. Like even just him just like running and jumping and like just like regular stuff. It's like he elevates faster than everybody. He can accelerate faster than just about everybody. But also, he's starting to read the game at that lightning quick level too.
Yeah.
Like when he had like 8 points early last night, and I mean he had like the tip pass and transition to JD, and he had the swing pass I think to Tobias or somebody like up in the top right wing, just whips the pass instantly. And he's seeing that second layer too, like Cade is, and like both of those guys together is becoming a really, I think, dynamic threat. Ausar's figured out exactly what he can and can't do. I don't think he's attempted a three in like 7 or 8 games. But like his interior shooting is elite. I mean, he's finishing everything inside. We're seeing him go right at guys a bit more. Like he's challenged Buzelis a few times in like the last 2 games, just going directly at him. Like, like you can't jump with me. You're not stronger than me. Understanding that aspect of it. Like we're seeing him initiate more, like more confidence in his handle. Like he's putting it all together. I tweeted his stats in his last 13 games earlier, and in like 24 minutes of a game, he's giving you like 13.6 rebounds, more than 2 combined blocks and steals, and he's dishing 2 assists for every turnover. Like, this is the perfect version of Ausar, I think. You always talk about the jump shot, and of course, if that comes together, he's a different player, but even without it, he's become, I think, a really ideal kind of hybrid point forward / elite all-around defender who just impacts every single play.
Detroit Free Press, i.e. Robin, says, audio engineer Robin appreciates your mute game, Bryce. Yes, I do that for you, Robin, to help you with the editing on the back end. Ausar had 3 drives. I believe it was in the first Bulls game. Those kind of ran together a little bit, where he just attacked space. One of them, he just bullied Buzelis and then rose up and dunked on him. Then the next time, instead of bullying through him, he spun off of him. And we know Ausar can create space when he spins off of somebody or Euro steps off of somebody or something like that. And then he had another one where he attacked Kevin Huerter. And I realize we're not talking the best defenders, but you know who's never going to guard Ausar Thompson on the Pistons? The other team's best defender. You know who? Because that guy guards Cade Cunningham. And then the second best defender's going to guard Jaden Ivey or is chasing Malik Beasley off screens or
is on Tobias.
Yeah, or Tobias, or whoever the second option is. So Ausar is going to get these type of matchups. Teams that try to be creative, they try to put their big guy on him because they want to change matchups or whatever. If he can just take advantage of those, he's going to be tough. And we've seen him make the little 8-foot jumper. He was doing that in his rookie season. We haven't even seen that in this stretch.
We haven't. That little funky, like he's rising up like maybe a foot higher than you would expect.
Jump higher than everybody else.
Just rise above everybody and just knock it down from 8 feet. Like, pretty simple.
Yeah. And so I think the biggest development is what we actually saw in last night's game, in Wednesday's night's game. If Ausar Thompson can actually initiate offense, if he can actually do that, allow Cade to play off the ball some, whether it's in the starting unit, the second unit, whatever, that is the biggest area of growth. I have no doubts what he's going to be as a defender. There's some little nuanced things I always bring up in terms of him becoming elite, but he's going to be an impactful defender, going to be an impactful rebounder. I think he's going to figure out the finishing. If he can initiate offense, whether like just doing the simple things or breaking down the defense and creating for others, that's where Ausar gets to his ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think some of it for Ausar right now is like one, just getting his win back because he missed so much time, right? I mean, it wasn't the type of injury where you could, still stay in game shape on some level. He was really shut down there for a bit. So, I think we're starting to see him really get that, velocity and win back that he had prior. But also, as you mentioned, just the matchups he's getting, like, I think he's understanding that he could physically dominate most teams' 3rd or 4th best defender, right? Like, it's not even, like, most guys are not, I say most, like virtually no other NBA players in his class of athleticism, especially when you combine that with just how he sees the game. He's like if Nicholas Batum had like this like android body or something and could just like run and jump higher than everybody. But yeah, you're just seeing him physically dominate these matchups. It's like my first step is good enough to where if I get a little bit of space, like they can't run with me, they can't jump with me. He's getting to the line a bit. He's still not shooting at the line really that well, but he's still generating that rim pressure. And, we're seeing him like keep his head up and look for shooters and whatnot in those areas as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's been just as important as anybody over the last month. He's come in. I think he's filled a little bit of that J.I. role, but he's given them something unique as well, especially on defense, where he's just this kind of 1 through 5 Swiss Army knife. Like, oh yeah, like I'll just rotate from Giddey to, Kobe White, close out 3 real quick. Oh, let me, back up and get on Vooch. Like he can do everything. Like there's really no limit, I think, to what we've seen so far.
Caleb brings up the immediate kick out to Tobias for 3, and then everybody talks about the Duren one. Now I realize what everybody's talking about with the Duren pass, or with the pass to Harris. I think that was one of the most important plays in that game as well in terms of long-term future, because on that play, I believe they put 2 on the ball on Cade, or they at least got to Duren in the short roll. And then Duren, playing with Ausar cutting along the baseline, makes a beautiful short roll read to Ausar. Ausar now draws 2 in the lane and hits the kick out pass to Harris immediately on the wing. And what's important there is the passing, right? One thing I've had to adjust in my line of thinking is, how do you survive with 2 non-shooters? And one of the biggest ways, obviously, if one of them could shoot or both could shoot, that would help, but is them both being really good passers and off-ball movers. Duren has started to show, especially in the half court, that passing stuff. And then obviously Ausar has as well. So let's go to another short break here. And then when we come back, we'll talk. We can talk some more about Ausar if you want. We definitely need to talk about JD, some of the other vets, and then we'll try to get some of the questions that you guys have put in the chat as well. We'll get to that right after this.
All right, we are back with segment 3. We could go ahead and move on to Jalen Duren only because we have about 17 minutes here, so we could keep it moving. But, like that's another player that I feel like athletically is just understanding what he could do and how he can impact games. But not only that, I've been a lot more impressed with his playmaking, where he's cut down turnovers, but he's also been a lot more, I think, aggressive in looking for those playmaking opportunities, whether it's leading fast breaks in transition, which maybe sometimes he can be a little too happy about. There are times where it's like, maybe you should get in position for the lob instead of looking downhill. But he's really sought those opportunities out. But even just the quick reads and short rolls or like whatever it may be, I think he's had nice chemistry with Ausar. Like he looks for those opportunities, and he's averaging about 2.5 assists per game this season. We've seen him take a leap there, and I've been impressed with him. Like he took accountability earlier this week. Like he said he started the season soft, and I think he's understanding now. Like just sitting back, seeing how Isaiah Stewart can impact games when he's on the bench, or even Paul Reed. Like both ends really matter, and it feels like we've seen him step up athletically and understand how he needs to impact the game on both ends.
Yeah, I think my 2 biggest areas for JD at this point, we've talked about the defense ad nauseum. Obviously, that's an area.
Closing guard on shooters.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Offensively, I think it really is the passing. Like I think for a while, I've tabled a lot of the other stuff for a long time. I don't know that I need to see JD grab and go, but if he can continue to make short roll reads at the level we've seen over the last couple of weeks, the consistency, that would be huge. Because if Cade Cunningham's going to be an all-NBA player, you know what teams are going to start doing more and more? Putting 2 on the ball. And then you have to be able to make teams pay out of that. And if you don't have a big that can short roll read, it doesn't matter if you have floor spacers around it because the ball never gets to those guys. So I think it would be awesome to continue to see him develop that. And then he had one of my favorite defensive plays in the game on Wednesday night, playing in the ball screen, playing in drop. He didn't open his hips. He stayed square. And then when the pass was made to the rolling big, he was able to recover and he got the block shot. And I hope that's a clip that JD watches over and over and the coaching staff shows him, like, look at this. You played exactly how you should, and it paid off in a very positive way. Continue to do those things. His hand activity has gotten better. His block shots in general, just some of his recovery, off-ball rotations, that stuff has gotten better. I think he has made strides on the defensive end. It's not perfect. It's not where it needs to be. I feel like I've preached patience with Jalen Duren a lot, even though I've had my doubts. And I think we're slowly starting to see that. And that's why I said, like, let's give him the whole season. I am maybe more excited to see what he looks like the last 27 games and whatever playoff games we get more than anybody. I think I'm more interested to see how he looks through these 30 plus games for the rest of the season.
No, I definitely agree. And the thing with Duren is always that he's been young for his class. Like he reclassified when he went to Memphis and he was like 17 when he first started college. Like he's just turned 21. in his third season in November. So, sometimes the learning curve for bigs, like him is a little bit longer. Like he's somebody that always physically dominated. And, I think there's a learning curve in the NBA for a lot of bigs where you come in and, there's just nuances of the game you have to learn. Like I think NBA defense is different from college defense. Obviously, college is much different from the high school level. And, sometimes you also just need, I think, the right support around you to where you can get these reps in real time and learn on the fly. I think without that type of immense pressure to where, it all falls on you, right? Like you have Paul Reed and you have Isaiah Stewart backing him up, which I think has applied that type of pressure, right? Like he has to come in and maximize those minutes when he's out there because there are guys who can get it done. So yeah, I think all those things have really pushed him this year and we're starting to see him figure it out. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a guy in year 4 that you really expect to take that leap forward and become that type of consistent rim protector.
All right, let's run through the vets real quick here. Let's just start with Malik Beasley. Broke the Detroit Pistons regular season three-point makes record. Second in the NBA in three-point makes behind only Anthony Edwards. I think he leads the NBA in a wide margin with catch and shoot three-pointers. Currently shooting 42% on almost 9.5 attempts per game. To me, this is a perfect example of opportunity meets comfortability, meets confidence. He knows who he is. He knows what this team needs. This team does need this exact production from him, and it's all come together in perfect fashion.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Beasley has every single bit been the elite veteran shooter this team's needed for a long time. And he's even been more than that. I think the way his team has really, just rallied around him, just how essential he's been to the good chemistry of this team. And then again, Cade missed a game, I think, against Philly last Friday. And, Malik Beasley steps in and, with 36 points and, essentially, leads them that night. Just on and off the floor, he's been everything they could ask for. Obviously, he's somebody, there's been a lot of talk, I see from fans online about, extending him or, don't trade him or this or that. He's an expiring free agent. He's on a 1-year, $6 million deal. And then I believe they can offer the non-taxpayer MLE. And, they'll be somewhat limited in, the amount of money they can offer him. But, I would think they would do everything they can to bring him back. And they can't offer him a pretty, significant raise over what he's making now. So we'll see. But there's really not so much else you can say about Malik Beasley. I think he's just been an absolute A+ in his role and has been as important as anybody else in this roster for sure.
We got a question about his free agency. We'll hit all of the questions here after we run through a couple more players, and we'll come back to that. Isaiah Stewart. It's funny whenever I look through the Pistons roster and their stats that, you get pretty far on the roster when you get to Isaiah Stewart in terms of points per game. He averages 6 and 6, essentially, Omari. It's not the most impressive whenever you just look at the box score numbers in terms of stats. But man, I feel like he's more impactful than what the stats could ever show. The rim protection is ridiculous. We saw him take some threes even the other day. Would love to see him get back to that. But I actually do think some of his paint finishing has looked better this year. He's not a high riser, not like a lob threat, whatever, but just some of his touch around the rim does seem to be improved this season. I think he's in the perfect role for him as the first big off the bench, and I think he's played it really well this year.
Yeah, it seems like with Isaiah Stewart's finishing, which as you mentioned has been really good this season. He's completely eliminated that weakness in his game. I think it's a combination of one, his teammates getting the ball to him in good spots. But two, I think he's also been a lot more patient and understanding of what he needs to do in the rim to finish over bigger defenders. And,
sure.
I feel like we've seen him do that with more consistency. So it's a handful of things. But yeah, last night he had 4 blocks in 18 minutes. And I think they all were within his last 7 minutes of action or so. He got his first one late in the third, or I think a dunk attempt by Kobe White. And then he had 3 in the fourth where he subbed out for good. Yeah, he just has those stretches where he just completely shuts down the paint and he's making all sorts of energy plays. And we've seen some playmaking flashes from him this season. He's still knocked down some threes here and there. He's beginning to work that in a little bit. So just a really awesome, he's what you want from a slightly undersized 5. You want somebody who's going to have his relentlessness and lack of fear as a rim protector, the way he attacks the boards. And I just think he's occupied that role really well. You look at the value of his contract too. I think phenomenal for what he's giving you at that backup 5 spot.
All right, real quick before we get to the questions, we've only got 3 games, a total of 50 minutes from Dennis Schroeder. Just thoughts on his minutes so far and kind of how he's fit in, what it's looked like. Listen, if he makes 26% of his shots overall, it's not going to end up being a great trade deadline addition, right? I think we all have to hope and assume that he's going to shoot better than that. Is 38% from 3, which speaks to how bad the 2-point percentage is, but almost 4 assists to 1 turnover ratio. Just thoughts on Dennis Schroeder so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's had such a crazy season and such a crazy deadline that, I would expect it would probably take him a minute to be comfortable. In brief moments, I think we've seen just what he can add. Like first time he checked in, I think on Monday or whatever day it was. This last week's been so busy. I don't even know what day today is. It's Thursday. Like you see him immediately come in and just get things organized. And you hit Malik Beasley for a couple quick threes he assisted on. And, we saw it last night too. So again, he hasn't really been making shots yet, but, just how immediately he's kind of come in as a second day Brian. We've seen moments. And I think as he gets comfortable, the shot should come back for him because he's got, I think, everything he needs with that second unit to be able to find his own shots as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I still think it was a good signing. I think it's going to end up making a lot of sense. We've seen him just calm down the offense at times. Kind of hate it for Marcus Sasser. Looks like he's completely out of the rotation when everybody is healthy. But yeah, it will be interesting. Let's get to some of these questions here down the stretch. Thank you to everybody who joined us watching live, whether on X or Facebook or YouTube. Chuck Brewer says, honest 30,000 foot view. If everybody maxes out, what do we need to add to the young core? Thinking we need a banging 4 to match up versus 2 big lineups. I mean, yeah, I guess if everybody maxed out, that would mean your starting group would be Cade, Ivy, Holland, Ausar, and Duren. You could be a little bit slight there. I do think the archetype of Tobias Harris is something this team will want to replace with a similar archetype when Tobias Harris is gone.
Yeah, you would certainly need, I think, some sort of scoring for who could give you, some sort of semblance of defense and rebounding as well. I think that role Tobias has occupied has, been a role that the team's really needed, really since Jeremy Grant departed. So if you could get something resembling that, then I would say that certainly makes a lot of sense.
Fernando says Schroeder played very well with Germany. He did. He had a very good Olympics. I will say my biggest thing is you got to find the number 2 guy. And if that's Jaden Ivey, great. And if everybody maxes out, I think Jaden Ivey, that's what he maxes out as, or Ron or whatever. I think that's, if you really looked at what are we unsure of right now, that would probably be my biggest thing is you have to find Cade Cunningham, his Robin. It may be Jaden Ivey, right? And that's what sucks about how much we're missing of game action from him right now. Sharon Dalton says, would anyone be okay losing the first round pick this year, knowing for sure the Pistons will go into the playoffs as a 6 seed or better? Yeah, I mean, I think we're at
everybody
that point.
should be.
Yeah, guys, I think we're at that point where this is probably what everybody should assume is there will not be. I mean, it's disappointing for me because I do a lot of NBA draft work and we're not going to be able to talk about it. Maybe people will want to talk about the second round pick, and then that's where my knowledge can come into play. It just wouldn't make sense right now. Your odds to get into the top 5 aren't going to be good enough. And quite frankly, guys, I know nobody cares about the draft right now. This draft isn't that great after the top 5. And so if you're not going to get, and truly, like, Cooper has supplanted himself as the clear number 1, in my opinion. So I think, yeah, convey that pick, go get the data, go get the experience, and then you get some flexibility with your draft picks moving forward whenever you decide you need to make a move, if you need to make a move.
Yeah, that's like the upside, beyond making the playoffs is that you get off of that obligation, which now goes to the Minnesota T-Wolves. And then you have all your first round picks going forward. So we talked about it last week on the pod, but you look at the market to get better, this past deadline. And if you weren't at least in the market to do some first round pick swaps, you just weren't going to get a starting caliber, player. And the Pistons still owing that first round pick, like, just really limits the amount of picks you'd be willing to give up going forward, especially for a team that's been good, but you're not quite at the point where you want to invest. So that's sort of a best of both worlds scenario where you could have momentum going into the playoffs this summer. And then depending on how you do in the postseason, you know exactly how good your team is and where you can strike. And now you have all your first round picks in front of you after 2025. So, you have the ability to go get a De'Aaron Fox, if you want to do something like that. And they have 13 second round picks as well to play with. So, they're in position to win and then also really make a swing this summer if they want to do both at the same time.
YouTube user, I've seen this a couple times. You say, I like our 2 second round picks. Please help me with the second one, because all I see is the one that they're getting from Toronto, which would be like 35 right now. But I've seen other people float like somebody else's second round as well. And then Philip says, how many seconds equal a first round pick? I believe Oklahoma City traded 5 to draft Dylan Jones in the 20s last year.
Yeah, that's kind of been the going rate.
Yeah, just for some reference. So it's not like it's a high first round pick. Ben says, I'm fully on board with this team. I believe we have the talent on the roster to continue to develop into a contender. I feel guilty for hoping for another top 5 lottery pick earlier this year. Don't feel guilty, Ben. I mean, listen, don't forget that they were coming off 14 wins last season. Okay. So, oh yes. Philip, Bryce, is Markovic good? I have him in that range. I would love Markovic at 35, depending on how else the big man rotation was going to, but he's a guy that can really space the floor. He plays for KK Mega, which was who Nikola Topic started last season with. A big man that can stretch the floor, has some athleticism. Interesting player. Big Dog Pistons. Can Naz Reid play next to Duren? He's a free agent this summer. Would $20 million a year be enough for him? Omari, I will quickly say, yes, he can. No, I don't think Minnesota is letting Naz Reid leave. I think they're seeing right now that him in that starting lineup makes a lot more sense than Julius Randle, and I would assume that they keep him around and put him in their starting lineup.
Yeah, like the amount of money it would take to farm away is probably not money you want to pay. Like if I'm Minnesota, like especially after the moves I've made this past year, like I definitely want to keep Naz Reid. But he could play next to Duren for sure. Like I see no reason why that front court wouldn't work.
YouTube user said, I think we have Toronto's and Washington's. I would just say on Take-a-thon, it shows that Washington's goes to the Celtics. So I do remember at one point the Pistons having Washington's, but I think that all got moved around. Mimic 313, about a month ago, I was thinking they need to lean into losing and playing the young guys and getting Cooper Flagg. What a ride it's been since then. Absolutely. Jeremy with a hot take. Out of all the Eastern Conference teams, the Pistons have the most upside because of their youth out of any team. With health considered, nobody wants to play them in a series. Write it down. It is kind of interesting where they're at in terms of just the young teams in the conference, right? The teams above them, definitely not youth movements. And right now, the Orlando Magic don't look super great. I mean, in terms of Eastern Conference teams, Omari, is there a team that you would be more excited about in terms of just the youth?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about young cores, the only options are them, Orlando, and Indiana. And I think Cade probably has the best. Like he's probably the best player of those 3 teams. Based on this season. Like I think he surpassed Paolo. I think he surpassed Halliburton. He's had a better season than both of those guys. The Pistons are starting to. I mean, like there's obviously parallels, with the Pistons and Rockets going back like 4 years, but they are starting to look like parallels of each other in opposite conferences. Like I'm starting to see a lot of Pistons and what the Rockets have been doing and vice versa.
Yes, Chuck says Cavs still sort of young, aren't they? Yeah, I mean maybe.
Donovan Mitchell's like 28 at this point.
Yeah.
Jared Allen's probably 26, 27. Like they're not an old team, but I wouldn't say that they're young either.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how you define it, I guess. Caleb says, I'm really hoping Ausar's playmaking continues, gives Cade a relief from the load perspective. I think his shooting has dipped recently, and I wonder if it's tired legs. Yeah, Jeremy Goldberg. So is the ideal perfect world lineup eventually expected to be Duren, Holland, Ausar, Ivy, and Cade? Could that even work? It could work. Got to be able to shoot the ball.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Ron and Ausar can shoot it, I like it a lot more. If at least one of those guys can shoot it, I like it.
Yeah, I think, I don't think Ausar ever gets to that level of a shooter. I think if Ivy is the 3-point shooter we saw, which was 40%, Cade continues to shoot the 3 well, especially off the bounce, and Ron would be the one most likely to get there, I think it could work. I think you would have enough defense there, enough passing, all of that stuff.
Athletically, you're dominating. I mean, Yeah, like that's a lot athletically. Nobody, like I think Ivy is the smallest player, like of the five, so you have size.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't expect it to happen because that essentially means your number one pick, your 3 number 5 picks, and your other lottery pick all hit. And I just like in my heart of hearts don't believe that's actually going to happen. If it does, we all probably should give Troy Weaver a little bit of love because he drafted 4 of those 5 players. But I'm not sure that's how it ends up playing out. Fernando asked, when can Ausar play more than 30 minutes? Do you know anything about a minutes restriction, one getting lit, anything like that, Omari?
Yeah, no, I mean we've actually been about it. Probably last time they asked him about it was when they were in Cleveland the week or two ago. But yeah, like they've sort of had like a minutes cap for him since coming back from the blood clots, and I don't believe he's cracked more than 30 minutes yet. I think his high has been 29 so far. Obviously, this past week, they haven't needed him to play 30 just because they've had some pretty big depth leads. So we'll see how that progresses throughout the year. Like, I really have nothing else to add, as far as that, but it'll continue to shift. So, like, we'll see how that looks a month or two from now.
A Red Baron Arcade, is there any realistic chance we could sign Beasley again in the offseason? You kind of touched
100%.
on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will bring Keith Smith on sometime soon and we'll work through the whole cap thing. Detroit is in an interesting situation where they could operate as an over or under the cap team. If they work as an under the cap team, that probably means they let go of the rights to Tim Hardaway Jr. That doesn't mean they couldn't re-sign him, but then you have to do all of that with cap space, and then you would only have the room exception. The idea of staying over the cap is you keep his cap hold. You can be over the cap whenever you sign him to a new deal. And then the idea is you would sign Malik Beasley with the non-tax MLE. And as Michael points out, there is only one team projected to have cap space. That is the Brooklyn Nets. And so Detroit would be able to offer just as much as any other team in the NBA other than the Brooklyn Nets. So to me, this probably comes down to a conversation between Trajan and Malik and his agent of, okay, are you going to stay for us at equal money or are you going to leave us at equal money? And if he's willing to stay in Detroit at equal money, they could operate over the cap. They could bring him in on the non-tax MLE. They could re-sign Tim Hardaway Jr. if they want. This obviously puts you out of the running for a Miles Turner or somebody like that. But I will say this, guys, if you want to work as an under the cap team and go sign a Miles Turner or a Naz Reid, you're probably not getting Malik Beasley also. You're going to use all of that cap space on those guys, and Beasley's not going to stay around, in my opinion, for the room exception. So that's kind of where the team is operating right now in the offseason.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have Keith Smith on, and he'll walk us through all of the cap intricacies as he always does.
Steven, correct. Beasley doesn't have bird rights, but you can sign him with cap space. So, like, you don't, if you have cap space, the bird rights part doesn't matter. That's why it's either cap space or the non-tax. Okay, last one here from Bayern. Should the Pistons chase a second star? They won 3 championships with a unique roster composition.
Like, I would not let yesterday's roster composition dictate how this team progresses. Obviously, I mean, you're 18-9. I mean, I don't know what pace I would be over the course of a season, but I would assume they're at a 50-win pace for, 6 weeks. So that, I think, gives you a good idea of where this team is as far as if you're ready to make that big swing or not. But the way I look at it is you look at the Pistons back when they made that swing for seed, right? Like they had already been a 50-win team for a couple of years. And then you went and got an all-star caliber guy who took you over the top. To me, you have to get to that point to where you can make some semblance of a playoff run before you do that. So they've overachieved so far. If I'm Trajan, I say let's just overachieve. Let's see where we are this summer. But you don't necessarily need to make that swing before you have to. Like, how many big swings has OKC made? How many big swings have the Memphis Grizzlies made? They've overachieved and they've kept adding young talent and developing, and they've still moved forward without cashing their chips in. So I don't think you have to do that to move forward. I think once you hit the point they're at now, that gives you some leeway as far as how you play it moving forward, and you get to see what guys are made of. And if you can kind of, develop that naturally, right? Like maybe you get a Desmond Bain, maybe you get a Jalen Williams, or, maybe you have to go find that guy. So that's where they are right now.
Agreed. And that's where I think eventually you do. I'm also of the mindset that guy could be on the roster. Could be Jaden Ivey, could be Ron Holland. Heck, it could be Ausar Thompson. The other thing I'll say is let's see what Cade Cunningham's ceiling is before we decide, what they absolutely need, right? And so that's a big part of it as well, is what does Cade actually need in regards to that? So I would say continue to play it out. I've wanted to see them be patient. They were at the deadline. I thought maybe this offseason would be a time to make a move, but it may not be. So it will be interesting. Steven says, Bryce, are you eating crow yet and saying the Pistons are a good team? I think Steven just came to call me out tonight. I appreciate it. Listen, they are right now, right? They're 3 games over 500. It's a positive net rating. So yeah, that's, I guess right now they went through that stretch, which is the one I wanted to see. I was telling my guy Harry today, hey, I'm very fascinated. They have 5 tough games coming out of the All-Star break. I'm interested to see if the momentum can continue coming out of the All-Star break. Man, they play well in that stretch, and they're really in a good place. So yeah, 3 games over 500, positive net rating. Sounds like a good team for the Pistons right now. They're doing a lot of really, really good things. So thank you to everybody who joined in. We appreciate your engagement, your questions, your comments, everything in the chat, keeping it legit in there. We always appreciate you guys for that. If you're watching after the fact on audio, we still appreciate you, obviously, just as much. Please rate, review, subscribe, share, all of that stuff. Really appreciate it. Make sure you're reading Omari on the Detroit Free Press. If you have it in you, subscribe to the Motor City Hoops Substack, completely free. Lots of good stuff over there between myself and my guy Harry from the Order of the Blazing Horse. I don't know, probably be back, maybe not Sunday, but Monday or something like that. We got a little bit of time off here. Got to figure out what we're going to talk about without any games in between. But this was a fun one. Omari, take it away, my guy.
Yeah, we'll be back next week to recap Ausar and look ahead to the final 27 games. Big thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. And with that, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Dakota Avery Nichols, and shout out to Wes Davenport, as always. Hopefully he'll have some new tires on his car. Next time he joins us. We'll talk to you all next week.